Okay, I think we are
Yes,
live.
we are. What's going on?
Hello, everybody. Hello. Hello, Ayana. How are
Hi
you?
there. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, thank you. Ayana is my personal friend. We have known each other. Ayana, we have known each other for how long?
We've
Since
known each other since I want to say 2006,
7,
7, 8, somewhere up
8?
in there.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
It's been a good long
It's
minute.
been a long time. We have worked at three places together, right?
Yes, we have.
Three
Yes, we have.
employers that we shall not name.
Yeah, they should not be named. They should not be
Right.
named.
Not gonna be named. Um, but this is a part of the Starting Over series. And this series is looking at, we're discussing Black women who are starting over, whether that is moving abroad, whether that is changing careers, whether that is starting businesses, starting a new, whatever chapter in your life. And I am so glad to have you and to talk to you, Ayana.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Please tell us, please introduce yourself. I feel like you will do the best introduction. Please introduce
I
yourself and
don't know
tell
about that, but
tell
I'll
our
try.
guests about who you are. You are like the multi, what do they call it? The multi hyphenate, like so many dashes. I do
Yeah,
X,
like
Y, Z, A, B, A to Z. Like,
her friend Shayna asked me was I Jamaican.
right, because how many jobs you got, girl? How many jobs you
well,
got?
well, I'm starting to streamline them now, so I don't have as many. But
Okay.
as Tanisha said, we've known each other for a long time. My name is Ayana Glaze, aka Ayana G, and I am a creative first and foremost, followed by a strategic person. So I do a lot of things. I grew up very crafty. My mom taught me to sew, so that's always been like a side hustle. And starting over, I decided to make that a business. But then it's
Wow.
not paying as much as I wanted to pay. So now I'm like, well, I
Okay.
got this whole career that's 20 plus years. So another part of
Hmm.
my starting over journey is to become more of a consultant and to start going after corporate clients on my own. So I'm a mom. I have two adults and one teenager getting ready to
Okay.
start high school. So we got one more on that slide.
Right, right,
One up
right.
out of there and one day out of here. But and I'm a wife.
Okay.
So yeah, so I started out as a writer
Wow.
and then I
Okay.
started to specialize in SEO.
Okay.
And then I went from that to just digital content as a whole,
Okay.
experience and user experience design. And what led me to my starting over journey, I've had, it's back when we have like a lot of corporate experiences, and not all of them are always favorable. And
True.
so you run up on that, and after so many times of running into the same personality type
Yep.
or the same type of mess or unnecessary drama when you just want to go do your job,
Yep.
the same type of sabotaging and so forth, you just get to a point where it starts to really just the toxicity starts to weigh on you. So I found myself recently in a position to where I had to do something else. I had to give myself a total break,
Okay.
doctor recommended break, so I could get myself together. So we'll talk about that more. But that's who I am. But I'm still here, still kicking and still pushing. I'm a
Amen.
fighter, if nothing else.
Okay. I hear you. So when it comes to you and starting over, have you had multiple times you started over, or has it been like you start over, you do something different, you start over again, or just tell us a little bit more about your starting over journey or journeys. Please let us know about that.
I think throughout my life I've had like it's some type of, I don't know if necessarily I want to call it a starting over journey or more of an
Okay.
evolution.
Okay.
Um, and I would say it started even as far as back in college, because I started off college going to school to be a nursing student.
Oh
And
wow. So you were in
yeah,
nursing.
yeah, I mean, I actually took nursing classes and all of that.
This
But
is
I found,
crazy because I, even though I know this, it's like I have to act like I don't know it. So I have to be like, wow, really?
mm-hmm,
So you went
mm-hmm,
from nursing, which is totally different,
mm-hmm, to
to
communications and PR.
communications, which
Mm-hmm.
is like two very different hats. Two
Right.
very
And
different
here,
skill sets.
two different skill sets. And here's the thing. I'm from a small town in South Georgia.
Okay.
And when you grow up in the country, things are presented to you, but you don't realize all the options that are available to you. And
Okay.
so the go-to careers are going to be teacher,
Or
nurse,
healthcare nurse.
doctor.
Right.
It's going to
Yeah,
be those are
doctor.
going to be the top tier ones.
Right.
Not even thinking about journalism and communications and PR or even marketing as an option. And
Okay.
so my mom's an English teacher, so that right there is the connection to communications and PR right there.
Right.
And so, because I was always writing and stuff like that in school. Well, when I was in college, I struggled. Now, in high school, I was like always smart. I didn't have to
Okay.
study. I didn't have to
Okay.
do anything. When I was in college, it was like when they say a different world, honey, it was a different world.
Okay.
But um, I think in college is when I got my first taste of bias and how that can
Mm.
affect you, particularly racial bias. Because in the nursing program, the whole goal is to weed out the weak people. Okay.
Mm.
So, and if you have someone that also has a bias there, and when I'm talking about racial biases, I'm not anyone's victim by any means. But
Right.
when you run into
Right.
that situation, the help that you would get if you were your counterpart
It's
is much
probably
different.
non-existent. Right.
Right, right. Because I think my experience, I probably would have stayed in nursing had I attended an HBCU. So I did all my nursing classes not at Georgia Southern, which is where I graduated from, but at
Okay.
Georgia Southwestern. So I was in America, Sumter County. You still had that lingering, you know,
Yes.
old boy mentality down there. So
How old were you? So were like what, like 18, 19, or were you like 19, 20?
I was 19 when I started the nursing program.
Okay.
So if I had stayed in, I would have been done at 20.
But that's still, when you think about it though, is like you said, the level of support that you did not get. And
Mm-hmm.
it's such a young age to kind of to bam bump up against that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but when you're young like that, you're kind of ignorant, so you don't realize
Yeah.
you're seeing it
You don't.
until
You
you're
don't.
in it. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So, and I'm gonna be honest, I didn't even know what affirmative action was
Okay.
until
Okay.
I was about to graduate from college. I didn't
Okay.
understand the premise of it or anything. And that's
Okay.
I'm not a Republican, but I just
Right.
didn't understand the premise of it until I start to experience some things to really see, okay, now I understand why this is the way that it is.
Right.
So, but in college, that starting over actually turned out to be to my benefit. But with starting over came the naysayers. It came the concern from parents. I know they love me, but you need to stay in nursing school.
Yes.
Relatives, you're not going to be able to make a living doing communications and PR. Nobody doing that.
You need a
Stuff like
job. How
that.
you gonna
Like,
get a
how
job?
you going to get a job? You're going to end up teaching. You should just
Yeah.
go ahead and be stuff like that.
Okay.
Not because they were trying to just be negative, but just because that's the nature of I'm gonna call it a small town mindset.
Okay.
And so when I was in nursing school, I did well in my classes, but I struggled with two things. I struggled with the nursing documentation, which I don't understand how I struggled with that because I could write my butt off. If I couldn't do nothing
Okay.
else, your girl can
Okay.
write.
Right.
And
Right.
then the other thing I struggled with, I didn't realize this until I was getting ready to graduate from Georgia Southern, but I couldn't see. I failed a class. Only I got a D. By one point, I got a D, and I failed this class that was only going to be offered once a year.
Okay.
So in nursing school, you can't get a D and still pass the class. A D is failing. You have to have a C or better. Which I
Okay.
understand that because you play on people's lives. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I got
Right.
that D, and it shook me. And I said something's not right. So I went over to the counseling center. At the advice of a friend, I went to the
Hmm.
counseling center, and she gave me a personality test, and we figured out, oh, you're not supposed to be doing this anyway. Because what came back is minister, which
Right. Right.
judge,
Okay.
and judge and attorney, and then communications and publicist. And I was like,
Wow.
what is a publicist? Because I never been introduced to that concept. You know what I'm saying? To me,
Okay.
the newspaper and writing for that was like far fetched.
Okay.
So I'm like, well, what does this person do? And so I went and started exploring the career, and I was like, okay, what does this school offer me that I had just transferred to, like not even a year prior?
Hmm.
I was like, okay, they have an English program, but I don't really want to major in English. That's too close to me being my mom. That's too close
Gotcha.
to me teaching.
Right.
And so I went and transferred back to Georgia Southern because I found out they had a communications program. And so I changed my degree and
Okay.
transferred. So that was my, I'm gonna say that was my first starting over journey. Example of one. And the
Okay.
other thing is my number. So I'm the oldest child. I'm 7 years. It's 7 years between me and my next sibling, my next living sibling.
Okay.
Each one of my children are 7 years apart. So
Hmm.
7 is my number.
Okay.
And on a spiritual level, and what I was told is that 7 is a number of completion and also new beginnings. So for
Mm.
me, starting over or evolving really is nothing new. It's just being able to flow in the transition.
How do you do that? How do you flow in that transition?
Girl,
Because
it's
it can be
hard.
difficult. It can be
It's
difficult
hard.
when you're going through it.
It's hard because sometimes it's hard to even recognize you're in a transition.
Mm.
So one of the things to know is like when you start feeling like, oh, I'm tired, I just don't want to do this anymore. And it gets to the point where sometimes it's almost suffocating, or everything feels like a burden, like you're carrying a load.
Hmm.
Pay attention to those signs of anxiety and depression, because it may be time for you to do something else. It may be time for you to move on.
How
Also,
do you how do you get, but when you have those feelings, and it's so difficult for us just as black women, because we are
mm-hmm,
black women first before we are
mm-hmm,
anything else. And just like you mentioned in terms of you beginning, I mean, you started your starting over journey began that's a very young age, first of all.
mm-hmm,
Second of all, you know how it is when it comes to us being black women. Like you mentioned before, some of your well-meaning relatives and well-meaning friends and family, were like, you
mm-hmm.
need to keep this, go this way because you can
Yeah,
get this job. And
yeah.
sometimes even as black women, it is like, girl, what are you doing? You've been at this place for 20 years. Or, girl, this is the path you're taking. Why are you going to leave that good job or good company? Or you get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. I get exactly what you're saying. Here's what I learned. People on the outside looking in, a company can look like it's a very good company, and we know this because we worked at a couple of them that
Major,
they look like
major
really good
Fortune, what,
companies,
Fortune 50
Fortune 50 companies,
companies.
and oh, you making that good money?
Right.
Ha!
Don't you leave
No, I'm
that
not.
job.
But okay, if you believe that. And then also, I mean, it to some people it can be good for depending on where they are, where they're living, and where they are in life. But we know that
Yeah,
it's all right, but it ain't. It's not of the caliber that we should be at because of the level that we're at in our career.
right.
So for me, I would fight tooth and nail. But what I started doing, I started getting tired of somebody. I was like, you know what? Life as a contractor is great because I have corporate commitment issues.
Okay.
The only corporate thing, entity I think I would ever be committed to is myself on a long term basis. Because
Okay.
what I learned is companies can let you go and move you and shift you around, whether you full time or whether you're a contractor or whether you part time. You are control of your career and you are control with where it goes. Now I say control adding in the God part because all the jobs that I've ever had, I've always believed that God placed me there. Because
Mm,
some stuff I got I wasn't qualified for. My
okay.
segue into digital, I wasn't doing that. I was doing customer service and I would do my PR stuff on the side just to kind of keep my portfolio relevant till I could find something at some agency. But I ended up in the digital space by accident. Again, that was another starting over. I started over within
Because
a company. Well, I'm gonna call that an evolution.
Because do you realize, I mean, customer service, and I've seen all these different groups and things, and just being in digital communities and
Mm-hmm.
social media communities, and how people really do struggle if they're in customer service and to get into a tech role. It's a
Mm-hmm.
big, it's a journey, it's a struggle. So how?
Imagine doing that
Yes.
when a company is just learning what digital means and how they can use the web. I did this in the 90s, right
Okay.
when they didn't even want us using the computer to check email.
Wow.
They only wanted us to be at the one place I was at. They only wanted us to just use it to maybe get into our cop system or whatever, where we could go and place an order. They did not want us in email. And we had Microsoft. This is when Microsoft was new and hot and popping. We didn't do this. Is like 1997, 1998, and I
I was
started
going to
dealing
ask,
in
when was it?
99.
Okay.
Yeah, and
So
I
late
got,
90s.
yeah, it was late, like real late 90s. And
Okay.
I ended up on a team because of my customer service experience
Hmm.
and because of my I thought outside the box. And
Okay.
because I thought outside the box and I had that customer service experience and I was kind of an expert in product too, I was moved over to this team to create this digital platform on some web-based software so that our agents could enter their own orders. And I became, so the things again, your gift is always going to make room for you. So what stood
Mm.
out? My writing.
Okay.
One, that was an evolution. It was an evolution, but it also was a starting over, and I didn't realize that's what it was. Okay, because I'm
Okay.
still green, and
Right.
so I ended up writing. I ended up being put in charge of content and all the authoring content because all the test scripts, I was writing test scripts, test
Hmm.
cases, use cases. I was documenting engineering terms, like what our different holes and labels and all that stuff meant. So I was doing all that stuff, just doing it because I could write and I understood it.
Okay.
And then I was working with developers.
So you were clearly into tech at
I
that point,
was straight up tech and didn't even know it.
but you did, because I was going to ask, when did you realize that you had made
Hmm.
the transition, and did your pay reflect that?
No, it
Okay.
did not. When
Okay.
I realized the transition was, I had been doing it for about a year and it was time for a raise. And
Hmm.
the manager, like, we need you to be here more. And I'm like, I am here. When am I not here? And then I posed a question and gave him something to think about. Did it ever occur to you that you have me doing so much, which I don't mind, but you rely on me so heavily that when I am not here, it makes such a big impact. And he had to
Right.
think about it. And he was like, you know what? You're right. You are. I haven't gone over my days. I haven't used all my vacation time.
Okay.
So when am I not here? Whew. It hit him like, you do a lot. I said, I'm thinking about everything I do. And
Right.
so he was like, okay. And then so he said, we're going to see about getting you more money. Now, when
Hmm.
they moved me over to this team, they didn't give me a title. So
Okay.
I didn't even know what particular tech role I was doing. And so this is a warning to everybody. When somebody wants to promote you, but they don't want to tell you what your title is, or if you don't know what the title is, do the research of your job duties and see what they are. Because chances are, because they still do it to this day, they're going to keep you at whatever title you're at so that they could pay you less money.
Right. So you can get underpaid. So you can be underpaid
Yes.
and not
So,
have the title. Right.
exactly. So when I got my raise and I saw it, and my manager happened to not be in town,
Hmm.
and I was upset. And so my coworker was like, she was a sub manager.
Hmm.
She was a
Sorry.
sub manager, and she was like, so what's wrong? And I told her, I said, they're not paying me. And the way I knew they
Mm.
weren't paying me what I should have been making, I think Monster, Monster Jobs, that engine had just started. People were just
Yeah.
realizing, oh, we can post these jobs and get candidates in.
Hmm.
And I had went and just messed around and threw my resume on Monster, and I had all these recruiters contacting me. And one of them that I
Oh.
talked to was like, "What are you doing?" And I told her. She said, "What's your title?" And I told her. She said, "That's not what you're doing." I said, "It's not." She said, "No." She said, "How much are they paying you?" And I told her. She said, "You should be making double that." I was like, "What?" I said, "But I hadn't been doing it that long." She said, "It don't matter. It doesn't
Mm.
matter. This is what you're doing."
Okay.
And I realized, whereas I was getting paid less than, I wasn't even getting paid 25K at the time.
Wow.
And
And the salary for what you were doing was what? Was it maybe
50.
double that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wow.
So
Back then, wow.
yeah. So when I didn't get a raise, well,
You
I
had to
got a
hold up.
raise, but it wasn't nowhere near what it
Right,
should have been.
right.
And I said I'd go somewhere else to make more money. And
Okay,
apparently, when it got back to my boss at the time, he's a great guy. His response was, "She can't go anywhere and get that." And when she told me he said that, I was like, "Okay, I show him better than I could tell him." That
okay.
next week, I was putting in my notice
Wow.
because I there was a guy that contacted me. He saw my resume on Monster, and
Hmm.
he contacted me, and I ended up I'm gonna call it an evolution, but it still was starting over. Ended up at a company called Career Stream
Okay,
as a documentation specialist and tester. So as a QA engineer and documentation specialist for them. So everything I did at the other place, I started doing. I did the testing. I did writing. I worked in robo help. So I did technical documentation. And see, I had been doing technical documentation for the other one. If people wrote their content or whatever, their training content, it didn't go anywhere unless I said it could go. It could go on to author. I think that we were using authorware until we wouldn't go to those people until I said, okay, it's good to go.
right. Okay,
So I was doing a lot and not getting
yeah.
paid anything. So that was my next phase of starting over.
And that's a familiar journey too, unfortunately. Doing a lot and
Mhm.
Black women doing a lot
Mhm.
and not getting paid, not getting compensation, not getting
Mhm.
fair compensation.
Mhm.
Job creep, scope creep,
Mhm.
right? You start out doing one thing, they see that you're good at doing that one thing, and things start
Mhm.
getting added to your plate. And
Mhm.
you don't get that salary adjustment,
Mhm.
the bonuses
Mhm.
tend to not come, or
You don't
you
get the
know
title.
title, the
Mhm.
things you need to
Advance.
advance and to do better on the next role don't
Mhm.
tend to come.
And so in your career, if you want to advance, a lot of times what you have to do is
Hmm.
start over.
Yeah.
If you can't evolve where you are, you have to start over somewhere else. And you have to be willing to do that. And it can be a hard thing. I remember when the one place that you and I mutually worked at, I think it was our first one.
Okay.
I remember being there, and I remember a time when I remember when when the process of blacklisting me started.
Okay.
And I remember the problem was with the one manager that got that ball rolling.
Hmm.
I remember there was some jealousy there. I remember
Okay.
being used because the company was scared to fire someone they needed to fire. And I remember being used without realizing I was being used because the goal was to create tension
Right.
so that, oh, well, we're going to move you here and move her here. But it was done in a way that would create tension. That's something else they do. They will try to create tension between you and someone else, especially if you all are banding together
Hmm.
and if you're both outspoken. So to
Right.
seem like you may be a backstabber. I've had that happen to me at a couple of companies, actually, at least two, where they
Wow.
took someone else's job and gave it to me because they weren't happy with that what that person was doing.
That to me it leads into another interesting point, because and I'm seeing, we've had this conversation before, like some of the ideas that we have talked about over the years and just our general conversations, right, which shall
Mm-hmm.
always be remain private. But some of the ideas that we have talked about and the things we have talked about, like, yeah, I'm now seeing these zennials and
Mm-hmm.
on TikTok, and you're seeing the quiet quitting,
Mm-hmm.
you're seeing the I mean, they got all kinds of names and monikers for it, but basically, these folks, these younger generation, are basically saying we are working less. And I think for Black women, it can be a difficult message to hear because we are told the opposite. We are
Yes.
told to work the quote unquote twice as hard. We
Mm-hmm.
are told that the harder, you got to work hard, you have
Mm-hmm.
to do all these things. And so we've done those things,
Mm-hmm.
and it usually does not result in us getting more money. We still don't get the title. All we get is this, the burnout
Mm-hmm.
and the resentment,
Mm-hmm.
because who you clearly are capable and skilled at doing A.
Mm-hmm.
And then once companies figure you can do B and C,
Mm-hmm.
they add it to your plate, but you don't get compensation for B and C.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I mean, it's almost at the point to where literally telling young Black women to do your job, but honestly, to do
Mm-hmm.
more than your job, unless it's your name is on the door, or your name is on that, you are the one writing your own paycheck,
Mm-hmm.
is almost like it's a setup.
It's definitely a setup. The thing is that there was a time in life where one could do more. I'm gonna
Hmm.
backtrack to my mother's generation. She's a boomer.
Okay.
She's a
Okay.
late boomer. So,
Okay.
and she's an educated boomer. So she's one of the ones kind of like told me one time she was mad at my daddy. Said, "I'm too independent, too educated, and too independent to be waiting on a man." I'm like, "This is my mama," because she sound like us. But there was, she used to like write papers and write
Hmm.
letters for the principal.
Okay.
Now she wasn't a principal. She wasn't even assistant principal, but he was someone that he relied on and he trusted, right? More so than even the little girlfriend he had at the job, but that's another thing. But the thing is that back then, doing a little more got you favor,
Yeah.
and it got you name recognition as to be that go-to person, and it did in some ways. They looked out for you to make sure you got a little piece of extra change.
Yeah. I feel like it started to change maybe like 40 years ago in the 80s. Like, I don't know what your thoughts
That's what
are
I was
about it.
gonna
Like the
say.
Wolf of Wall Street, the
Mm-hmm.
acquisitions after
Mm-hmm.
that,
When
like,
more and more women started entering the corporate workforce, and
mhm.
particularly when Black women got more and more educated, think um 80s and late 80s, early 90s, when you had the whole different world and Black women were going off to school and coming out in droves, entering the
Right.
workforce.
Right.
They weren't coming out, being nurses. They was coming out being corporate execs and stuff like that. They were getting
Right.
MBAs and all that stuff, right? I
Right.
think that's when it changed because there's still this issue of the Karen tears, even in corporate, the
Okay.
blue-eyed tears,
Yes.
the shock and the appall that you would actually stand up for yourself, and then you become the angry Black person. No, I'm not an angry Black woman. What it is that I'm too strong to sit here and let you lie on me. I'm not gonna knowingly let you lie and then and let you brainwash me into saying that your lie is true when I know you lying on me. I'm not gonna do that.
Or take credit for your work.
Or take credit for my work. Or
Or
girl, change your work
that part.
to sabotage you
That part. To make it look like you're doing something wrong,
when you're not.
when you're not.
And that still goes on today.
It does. It absolutely happens. Still, 2024,
To
every
yes.
day.
And it's like I dealt with this 14 years ago. Now I'm dealing with the gaslighting. The gaslighting is way different than what it was back then. I mean, this gaslighting is on a whole nother level. And the part where you have someone who not necessarily is in a position above you, but where
Hmm.
they are, this is what got me and what started me on this new starting over journey. Um, you've been knowing me for a long time, so I've always wanted to go on my own. I've always had some second stuff do. I did my jewelry, I sew, I would do freelance work. We both are freelance at some point. And what happened was it's a series of unfortunate events. Um Tanisha, your screen went black.
I got a phone call.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
All right. Sorry. Okay.
So, I start over. So, what had
You
happened
got a
was I
phone
had a
call.
no. I'm saying I'm starting over what I said.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'm starting over so you can cut it. Well, you need it.
Okay. Okay.
So, um, so what had happened was I had a series of unfortunate corporate events. I'm gonna say over the past year. I had one financial company, and they tried to. I don't even know if you call it gaslighting. They wanted to bamboozle me. I was doing one role. They wanted to put me in another role, but the other role was being paid out of a different cost center, so the pay was higher. They didn't want to give me
Hmm.
more pay. They didn't want to give me more pay relative to the actual role that I was getting ready to do. And they jumped the gun. It was turned into a whole mess. And I guess they didn't think I quit. I quit because
Okay.
you're not gonna play with me. I got to a point in my late 40s where I said I'm done letting folks play with me. Okay. Then I had another incident where the folks were scared to tell me that my job had ended. Why? I'm a contractor. If the job is ending, just say the job is ending.
Right.
Don't, because I had been through this at IHG one time where the job was gonna come to an end, and they strung me along and strung me along and strung me along because they couldn't find nobody else to take the role full time. And they knew they didn't want to hire me. They didn't want to hire any of us contractors. So I said, never again will I go through this and carry this feeling because there's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of
It
corporate
is.
trauma. They talk about church hurt. We need to talk about work hurt. That's a whole nother series to do because there's a
It
lot of
is.
work hurt.
Let me
And if
write that down. Let's we need to do another one on that one alone.
yes,
Another whole nother kind because that can be a whole separate conversation. Like you
mm-hmm.
said, work
and
hurt
you
and
and
trauma. PTSD.
exactly
Work
work
PTSD is
PTSD. It's
real.
a real thing. It's a
It's
real
real.
thing. And so you end up getting that. But there's some things I had to, you know what? I'm in control of my career. So there's some things I'm going to tolerate and some things I'm not going to tolerate. I tolerate some stuff because I got to feed my family, right? But some
Hmm.
stuff you have to figure out what like in a relationship, what's your no go? What's your
Deal
um
breakers.
deal breaker? My
Right.
deal breaker is this. You're not going to make me think I'm crazy. And the
Okay.
last one that I had one where it's like, I need to feel like I can trust you to talk. But I got confirmation later on after I quit. They did the same thing to another young lady that worked there. They didn't want her to talk. They didn't want her to be the face. And to me, that was a sign of subtle racism because she was way more articulate than I am. Because I still got my little country twang that I'm probably never going to get rid of. But she sounds a bit more corporate in terms
Okay.
of more. She sounds like a white girl, but she's not a white girl. She's a sister.
Oh,
But she
okay.
can sound
Okay.
like, if you don't know who she is, she'll sound and you don't see her face, you will think I'm talking to a white lady when I'm talking to her.
Okay.
So, but they did the same thing to her after I left. And they didn't want her talking in front of anybody. But then tried to
Wow.
scapegoat her and say, well, I need you to step up. I need to be able to when are you giving me the opportunity to speak? You clearly don't want me to say
Mm.
anything. So then that hurry up
Mm.
and hush, you're not gonna silence me. There's something else. Then after that, it was and this was stuff was happening to me back to back to back. So this is leading to where I am right now. The last thing was I was on this job and I really liked the job. I liked the team, or so I thought.
Okay.
During what was supposed to be my training, I missed out on a piece of training.
Okay.
That came, and then also the person that was on man, she siloed me in what we were doing.
Hmm.
So when she left and the work was on me, I could do the job, it wasn't a problem. But then I started getting edited by people that didn't work in our particular line of business. And so I'm being edited, and everything I do is being questioned to the point,
Mm.
and I don't know what you call this. I would do something and do it the right way. Because remember, I'm
Hmm.
strategic and I've been in the game 20 something years. I would
Right.
do what need to be done, but then they would come behind me in the editing and tell me it's wrong. And I mean, it had like a whole Jira store of nothing but like pages of edits in there.
Mm.
Stuff I did wrong. Then turn around, I make the changes. Then the BAs see it. That's not what they wanted. Then I'm going
Mm.
back to redo what I had done in the beginning. That actually was what should have been done. Had that
Okay.
happened several times, and I had a near nervous breakdown one day where it had just gotten
Hmm.
bad. Now it was really bad. I was going through something, and I literally had a crying spell just as I was getting on the phone with my doctor, and I wanted to take myself out. It was that bad.
Was it that bad? Was it just a buildup of things? I'm sorry. I'm
I
trying
think
to
it
get
was a
this.
buildup of things.
Hmm. Sorry.
That's okay. Um,
Okay.
I think it was a buildup of things, and it's like here I am now. I'm in my 50s, and I'm dealing with this corporate stuff again. When does it
Okay.
stop? When is it enough? If I don't talk in meetings, um, I'm unengaged or disengaged. No,
And
why do I need to
we
say
hear,
something? Well, you just all y'all repeating the same thing for 30 minutes. This could have been
I mean,
email.
and we get that a lot, the unengaged thing. And I'm always wondering, do other people get that? And I mean, I'm not wondering. I know they don't get it.
They don't get it. And it's like, say something just to have something to say. But
Hmm.
I don't have anything to add because I'm in agreement. If I'm not in agreement, I'll say something. And then when I do
Right.
say something, talk over me. Well, if you're just gonna
Hmm.
talk over me, I'm gonna sit here and mute and sit here and continue to do the work that I got to do. I don't have the time for that. And so what I have learned is to trust myself more. And it's taken a moment for me to get back to the level that I'm at right now in terms of like my mental health and everything. I'm
Okay.
nearly back to 100%. I have days, we all have days when we get the blues and we don't want to do it. But
Ooh.
I realized the other day I feel like myself. But part of feeling like myself was me starting over.
So tell me about that a little bit, because I think, especially for Black women, we from a mental health perspective, I don't think certain things are recognized because we are often so high functioning,
Right,
right? Whether
right.
it be whether it be a mental challenge of whether it's depression, anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
um, PTSD,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you want to call it, ADHD, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We are typically high functioning because we have to be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, just from a mental perspective, do you think that some of the things that we just have to go, I'm not going to say we have to go through, I'm going to say things that are placed upon us that we unfortunately deal with, especially in most corporate work environments, especially in business environments, just in the workplace in general. I mean, I don't care if you work at Chick-fil-A.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these same microaggressions,
Mm-hmm.
these same games are being played.
Black women are like high functioning alcoholics.
Mm.
The, you're drunk. Clearly,
Right.
you're drunk.
Okay.
And you're inebriated and you don't have your full faculties about you, but you're still functioning at a very high level
Right. Because you have to. You have no
because
other
you have
choice.
to. You don't have a choice. You sober up real fast. Think about us.
Okay.
We can be down
Mm-hmm.
for the count. The
Mm-hmm.
children holler for us. Boom, we're up, moving real
Right.
fast. We can be down for the count in the office. Boom, some hot project comes up. We're shifting. We're
Right.
multitasking. Boom, we're up. We just getting it done, just getting it done. And not
Mm-hmm.
one time do we say, let me take care of myself. Let me get my
That's a hard one. And that taking care of yourself is a hard one, because I think we're often told that, we internalize so much.
yes, we do.
We internalize a lot of things. And so we internalize all of these different messages. We internalize that we're not supposed to have rest or time off, or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I realize even with my journey, and I'm realizing that I've internalized those messages like, okay, I don't have to be productive every single, you know what I'm trying to say? Every single moment of the day.
If you think about what we do, let's look at us in the office. You and
Hmm.
I work at several places together.
Absolutely.
How much work do we really do?
I mean, that's the thing. In most corporate environments, I'm not going to say all, but in most corporate environments, you are not busy 8 hours of the
You
day.
are not. I work harder working from home than
Yes,
I ever have working in the office because
absolutely.
there are more distractions in the office than there are at home. Because if I got children, my children are usually at school at least 9 months out the year. I got a
Right,
husband, he's usually at work, or a significant other. If you got any kind of man,
right,
he's gonna be at work.
right,
So where's the distraction? Me taking 2 minutes to put some clothes in the laundry or to take some out the laundry and put in the dryer, that's the equivalent of me going to the bathroom. But I guarantee you in the office, if I go to the bathroom, I'm gonna go to the bathroom, I'm probably gonna run up on my girl, I'm gonna see somebody live, I'm gonna stop and talk. If I'm sitting here trying to like get heads down, get some work done, somebody gonna come asking me a question about something else. That's not a priority for me at this moment.
right,
Let's
right.
keep it real.
Hmm.
And corporations don't want us to, they want to act like that's not the case. They want to act like there's more productivity in a collaborative space. No, it's not. You're just sitting around BS and you ain't getting as much done.
Right.
It's
They
just,
want the butts in the seats, right?
yes,
That's what a manager once told a group that I was in. You know,
that's
they want
insulting. I remember
9
that group.
a.m. butts. I want to see butts
Butts and
in
seats. That's so
seats.
insulting. To
It
me,
is.
when he said that, that was like saying, I want you in the field. I want you out there in the field picking that cotton at 9 a.m.
Hmm. This was a older white woman manager, and she told this to a team that I was on. I didn't personally hear it, but it was the message was relayed by a person who looked like me and you, who heard, you know, who that's what she was referring to everybody.
Well, I
But you're
remember
right.
hearing that at the D.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
Wow,
At the D.
wow. Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know that. And this person was that's interesting you say that because this person was also there at that place too. So it
Mm.
followed.
Yeah. Or the
It followed
ageism.
that part.
When you get to be about, people still think they be considered young in the workplace. When you get about 35, they want to
And
start getting you up out of there because they want fresh meat. That's
they
been
want
said at places.
the recent college graduates, right? They
Mm-hmm.
want the just fresh out of college,
Yep.
right? And whoever would have thought 35 would be considered like, old or whatever.
When the
But they
Department
want,
of
like you said,
Labor,
they want that new talent so they can mold them to what they want them to be.
yeah, because they don't want the new talent because they want to be fresh on the newest technology. Because the people that are already there, most likely they're part of organizations that keep them abreast of the latest technology. So that ain't it.
Right.
They want the young, fresh, and unmarried. If it's a guy boss, he probably wants some pretty young tender he can look at, preferably
Mm-hmm.
blonde, blue eyed. I hate to say it, but
Mm-hmm.
it's the truth. Um, there's just it's a lot that goes into
Mm.
the stuff that goes on with corporate, and it can be very torturous. It can be hard when the Department of
Absolutely.
Labor has a program where they have sessions for people that are 40 and older.
That lets you know. It absolutely lets you
But the
know.
government say I got to work till 65, at least 62, and I think it's
Right.
going up
Early
now. I think they
retirement is
went up to
62.
67.
I thought it was 67.
I think they went up to 67 now. So you telling me that at 35 I'm old? I got 30 more years to work.
And when you think about it, considering the fact that, and this is why I recently have been saying that it's a scam, because what is the life expectancy in the US? 70. 70 is the life expectancy in the US. So you mean they look at people and say, "Oh, you're 50, 55, middle age." No, you're not middle age. That's not
Mm-mm.
middle age.
You passed me like middle age is 30.
35 is middle age.
Mm-hmm.
Because what are you saying? You're saying I'm going to be working until I'm quote unquote almost 70. And for
Hmm.
our kids generation, they don't know what they're going to have. They ain't
They
social
ain't worried
security
about it because
whatever.
they done found them another way to make money. Look, a good example of them finding a new way to make money. Look at Angel Reese.
Yeah.
Look at Angel Reese. Angel Reese, Shador, Caitlin Clark, Shador, Dion's son, him and
Yes.
the other brother,
Deion
and even the,
Sanders,
the other
right?
brothers doing the PR work. They're yeah, they have family, but look at how they Travis Hunter. These people are getting this money, and they making more money than they bosses, than they coaches is making.
They are. The challenge becomes though, and there you see all these people on TikTok and social media, influencers, Instagrammers, and all that. The challenge comes though, what about if you aren't that, you know what I'm saying? You aren't that Angel Reese, or you aren't whatever Deion Sanders, I can't think of the boy's name. You aren't his son. You know what I'm saying? Yes, you're making all this money. What if you're not that?
I think the challenge is realizing that they have tools and resources now where they
Hmm.
don't have to be that. They can
Right.
become whatever they want to be, and that's the problem that corporate America is facing. Because if you're telling me that in order for me to work at your company, I'm going to have
Hmm.
to go to school for 4 years just to come out and you pay me 40 grand. And if they could push
Hmm.
it back, they really would push it back. When I know I sat here and I can shoot content and get me some, become an influencer, get me some sponsors, create some engaging content on YouTube or on social, and I can make more money, I come out better just charging you for me just to make you a couple of reels.
Exactly.
I can make my annual salary just doing a couple of reels.
Right. It's a different way of thinking of things. I don't
It's
think
a
that they're,
different world. It's
yeah,
not the same.
again.
And the problem is you still have members of the old guard, that boomer generation, that are still around, and they're trying to
Hmm.
run things the way they ran things 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when technology was not as advanced as it is now. Think
Right.
about us, Tanisha. We both started journalism, right?
Hmm.
You did journalism a little longer, more than I did, a little longer too. But remember when we thought newspapers were going away, and for a time newspapers did go away? They had to figure out, and they had to shift, and they had to adjust. And the thing is, the job is still going to be there in some iteration of it. The thing is, are you willing to start over or evolve into the new version? Nowadays, I can say right now I'm be a broadcast journalist, and all I do is do my stuff on YouTube.
Right. I can have my YouTube channel be popping, right? I get
It's
all these
weathermen.
views.
All they do the weather strictly on YouTube. They're not
Wow.
on TV. They just straight up on YouTube. Matter of fact, they're weathermen when there's a storm system coming through. I watch them
Oh, wow.
because I don't have to be
Okay.
bothered with commercials. I can just watch their live stream, see what's up.
Wow.
It's too many opportunities to be independent and to be free.
Mm.
And so hence my starting over journey.
Okay. Tell us
Um
about the start, tell us about the being free and the independent part of your
so
starting over journey, and how
part of
you
my
arrived to that place.
yeah, because I'm kind of going backwards a little bit, but not quite. So my
Okay.
starting over journey after I had the issue with the mental health issue and some other stuff pop up, I
Okay.
started to I decided, okay, well, I need to make some money some kind of way. Let me start sewing again and doing alterations. So when my grandmother died in November, I went and got my mom invested in me, and I got me a little space to work out of because I didn't want people coming in and out my house. So I started Ayana G's House of Style, which had been a dream of mine for some time as a little boutique. But I was like, okay, well, I'll just do alterations. So I started doing that. And it's, I ended up getting brides and stuff. Before I even moved out my house, started getting brides and prom and all that stuff. So, and I've always done some iteration of doing alterations, even working corporate. People find out I can sew. Hey, can you fix these pants for me? So it'll always be
Oh,
a little piece of change for me on the side.
right.
Um, but in this economy we're in right now, people are starting to hold their dollars a little bit tighter now. It's getting a little harder. It's a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more of a struggle. Well, I need some cash. And I was sitting there, it's okay, well, my landlord is like, can you teach some marketing classes? And then he's referring to me as his digital strategist. I said, you know what? Let me just go ahead and re-embrace. Because what happened is once I started feeling better in here, feeling better in here, and feeling better about me in general,
Mm-hmm.
I have worked at some big companies. You worked at some big
Absolutely.
companies. There are people
Absolutely.
who only wish they could get at those companies and wish
This
they
is
could do the
true.
work that we do. But
This is
I
true.
remember something when we started freelancing year back in '08, '07, '08. There was a recession then.
It
Companies still
was.
had work and they still had to get that work done.
Mm.
What I realized is over the years I've gained as a contractor, I'm looking at budgets at one company. I'm looking at what they're paying their agency partners. And I'm saying like,
Mm-hmm.
hold up now, they didn't even
How
do,
much?
and you finna get them what now? We firing them and they still getting how much? And so I ran up on this coach the other day. It's like everything is like coming into alignment with this start over and evolution, right? And
Okay.
everything is falling back in place with me getting back to who I am as a digital content strategist.
Evolving. You're evolving.
Evolving. I'm evolving again, but now as I evolve, evolving into my own state of being where
Okay.
I'm embracing myself, not just seeing myself as a contract employee, but seeing myself as a consultant. Pay me corp
Mm.
to corp because I want all my money. I'll pay
Right.
on Sam, but pay me all my money. Evolving to say I want to go after the corporations myself because I can survive better off of a retainer agreement that's gonna get me 100 grand over the course of a quarter, and I
Mm-hmm.
can live off that the rest of the year if I want to.
Right.
Even if I have to
Right.
bring in a consultant to help me out, you know what I'm saying? So
Right.
realizing that and recognizing I don't need anyone to give me. I've never been a corporate climber, so I don't need anybody to give me a job where I'm a manager. I've already managed people. They didn't give me the title, but I did.
Okay.
I don't need anybody to give me that. I just need you to give me some work.
Right. Right.
I don't need to be a director or whatever. No, I'm the founder of. I'm the owner
You
of.
owner of. Your name
I'm
is
a,
on the door.
my
Your
name
name
is
is
on the
on the
door.
door.
It's on the
Right. Your
door.
name is when you come into the office to your
You
suites.
see
It's
Glaze Content Solutions
and
or
right,
Ayana Glaze
right
House of
there
Style. You see, it's
in your
me.
studio.
It's mine.
Exactly.
I'm not
Exactly.
gonna fire myself. I'm
Right.
not gonna give myself a pink slip. So
Right.
what I had to do, I said, look, I know that it's tight right now. I know I need to make a certain amount of money every month. What's the shortest distance between these two lines? That's digital content. Something I
Mm-hmm.
have. What year is this? I have almost, and I'm just 5 years shy of having 30 years experience in this game.
And
When it
that's a
was
long
nothing,
time.
I started when it was nothing. When
Right.
people and companies didn't even know what it was. Why
Right.
would I? Why am I down on myself? Why am I questioning myself? Why do I feel like I need to constantly go back in my head and run to? I need to go back to nursing school because that thing is still there. That little thing
Right.
is still there. You should have stayed in nursing school. You should have been a teacher. That
Yeah.
thing is still there. It's still when it gets hard, those voices still can pop up.
They can. And black women, we know one thing black women will do is get them some degrees,
We will get us some degrees,
certifications, degrees.
certifications. We're gonna hustle. Cause see,
Right.
I'm not beyond if I need to, I go in there and bake some cakes and get out there and go to hair salons on Saturday and sell them. I'm
Right.
not beyond that if I need to. So now it's more about because I'm tired. Tanisha, I'm tired, girl. Oh, I'm
Yeah,
tired.
it hits different once you get a certain age because your energy levels and I mean I don't think it's just energy. I don't think it's just energy. I think it's also
Menopause child.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying menopause isn't real. I'm not saying things we did in our 20s we're different people, right?
Hmm.
And things we did in our 20s,
We
it's
don't
going to
do
be
now.
more of a challenge in our 50s, but it's also the wanting to part. You
Yeah,
know what I'm saying? You when you're younger, you are, I mean, yeah, you're hungry, you're whatever,
you're
but I
carefree.
think life kind of, I'm not going to say it hits you, but you have different boundaries.
Hmm. Like one of my boundaries, I'm not getting in my car driving North Atlanta every day no more. I
Right.
wore myself out doing that. I
Exactly.
know that
The
trigger
same thing as you would
arthritis
have
in
done
some
20
areas for
years ago,
me.
you aren't willing to do
I'm
now
not willing
because
to
you
do
know
that.
yourself better.
It's
Right.
it's too much. It's too
Right.
much. It's too stressful to sit in traffic early in the morning, drive to work, spend an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours in the car just going 30 miles to work.
Right.
Then you got to get there and get adjusted.
Right.
Try to work. Got to deal with people and their
Right.
personalities. Then you got to go get in your car and drive home in the afternoon. And people wondering why folk don't get out their car. We don't get out of
Yeah.
car because we're too tired to get out of our car when we get home. What am I
Exactly.
walking into
That's
when I walk into the house?
right.
So, but that starting over journey, if you're thinking about starting over, do it. Come up, definitely have your plan. And let me tell you something: if God is on you and it's something nagging at you and you can't get rest and can't get peace, either God gonna sit you down or you gonna sit yourself down. But start
Ooh, this
thinking about, well, he will sit you down
the
and
sit you down part.
he will
Because
sit you
that
down.
follows into my next question. What advice, and I know we're getting close to time, but what advice do you give Black women who are, something is in their spirit, they're thinking about starting over, they're not sure, or maybe they are sure. What advice would you kind of give them as they're looking at starting over, or they're, evolving as
Mhm.
you have?
Um, if it's in your heart, figure out a way to do it.
Okay.
Sit down, make you a list. If you're not happy, sit down and write a list as to why you're not happy. Figure out what's causing you to not be happy. Is it your job? If it is your job, okay, what can you do to make your job better? If it's applying for another position, do that. If you run into opposition and applying for that new position, it's time for you to go. Because
Right.
no matter where you are, no one should be stopping you from progressing or excelling. Okay. If you get up in the morning and you crying every day because you don't want to go to a job, honey, it ain't it. You need to find you a new job. And when you get to that new job, you need to start plan your exit strategy. I would even
Mhm.
say everyone in a role should have some form of an exit strategy.
Okay.
You need to have a surprise exit strategy. If that means, okay, well, I know I like doing origami. If that's gonna be part of your exit strategy, start doing it now. Don't wait. You don't have to wear yourself out. What you don't
Okay.
want to do is wait until you're like 60 and then trying to start over. It's harder starting over at 60 than it is starting over at 30 or 40. Don't allow yourself to be miserable when you don't have to. Also, be
Mm-hmm.
smart. Look at ways to take the expertise that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Take that expertise. If you've worked for it for all those years, it may not be your job that you don't like. It may be the people that you're working with that you don't care for. So if
Right.
you're in a job that you don't like, explore how you can take elements of your job that you're really good at and turn that into its own thing.
So in that as like a consulting or
As a consultant
client
on
based
your own
business.
client, if they're like small businesses and you know you can and define small business too. Because you got a micro business and macro businesses, and then you have true small businesses. You need to look and see what receipts they got, like what's their average earnings. Because a small
Mm-hmm.
business can be a business that only making I think small business between 1 and 5 million is technically
Yeah.
what a small business is. They
Mm-hmm.
got money, but they got money. You go after people that are going to be lucrative for you. Don't waste your
Okay.
time. Don't let anybody waste your time. Your time is your money, and your time is something that you cannot get back. but invest some time in yourself to figure out what it
Mm,
is you enjoy doing. What is it about your what area of expertise you have that you can take that expertise and turn that into something else. So you
okay.
don't have to be dependent on corporate. And then when you do shift, transition, evolve, start over, whatever, you can write your next chapter easily and be
Writing the
bold.
next chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Writing the next chapter. Oh my goodness. So, oh, this has been like a great conversation. I think you've given so many gems, Ayana. Please let our viewers know how they can contact you. Like, tell us all, give us all your information, your socials, all that good stuff.
All
You
right.
know, business name, all of that.
On my consulting side, you can find me on YouTube at Glaze Content Solutions, and also at YouTube at Glaze Content Solutions. On my sewing side, you can find me at Ayana G's House of Style, and that's on Instagram, Facebook, and at your girl Ayana G on YouTube.
Okay, great. Is there anything else that you want, any final comments that you want to add? This has been a great conversation. I'm hoping that the people who are seeing this message need to see it. But is there anything else that you'd like to add? Any parting words of advice
This has
before we
been
wrap this
great
one up?
conversation. Okay, this has been a great conversation. Thank you, Tanisha, for having me. And just for everyone that's on here, just be bold, be confident, and be you. And don't let anyone else define your career or what you do but you. And go and read Jeremiah 29:11. That'll put it all in
Okay.
perspective for you.
Okay, I'm gonna go read Jeremiah 29:11. On that note, we will end it here. But thank you so much. You all heard Ayana say all of her information, and it'll be also in the description so that you listen. You heard the knowledge and wisdom that she's given. So this is again a personal friend of mine who has reinvented, evolved, recreated, is always, always growing. So, and these are the type of conversations that we have all the time, whether it's through text, we don't talk every day, but it'll be phone call, like, girl, or it'll be just, long Facebook messages, voice notes, all that stuff. So this is like the compiling of everything, because we have been saying that we need to do this for the longest time.
Yeah, it's been about what, 14 years, 13, 14
Yeah,
years we've been talking about doing something like this.
we've been talking about this for the longest time. And even today, I was telling you, like, girl, yesterday I had a day. Like, I'm glad this wasn't today. Like, because yesterday I had a whole day, right? Like, it was
Hmm.
just like, oh, it's not good. So, but we have been saying for the longest time that we need to come together.
Hmm.
And you have been on YouTube well before me, and I'm kind of new to the YouTube crowd, but we have been saying for the longest time that we need to have the conversations that we have, me and you.
Hmm.
We need to figure it out. And this is it. Took us a minute,
Yes,
but we here.
yes, we here. We here,
We
girl.
are
We here. We're
right.
doing it.
We here. We are here. So, man, I am so glad to talk to you this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
We're
having
going to
me.
continue. I think we need to continue this conversation. I think we need to, you dropped some gems that I needed to hear definitely in this conversation. But I think when you mentioned the work hurt
Hmm.
and us having to, heal from that, I think that's another conversation that we also need to have.
We
So,
definitely can have it, girl.
yeah, let's it'll be a part two. This will be a part two of the conversation, but
Okay.
we, we'll
Okay.
do we'll do we'll do that soon, because that's the next part. We know the problems that are happening or that have happened. So how do you heal and move on?
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So
And it can be hard, but it can be done.
exactly. Absolutely. So all right, girl. Thank you so much again. Thank you again, you guys, for all of you who are watching. Again, Ayana's information is going to be in the description of this video. Make sure you follow her, subscribe, check her out. Go on, IG, all of the good stuff, YouTube, all the things that she's telling you. This is where you can find her. Make sure you follow her to get her wisdom and advice.
All right.
All right, girl. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.